Okay, second batch of epoxy mixed up, second layer of corners put into place, epoxy laid, and the final puzzle has been set. Just going to put a little weight on top there so that the pieces won't flop around too much. And we're going to let this sit for a moment. So, why did I temporarily glue on the corners of this puzzle, all 8 pieces, when I had 4 perfectly good pieces in my opinion, and instead of fixing them permanently, I am now doing the second layer. The main reason I don't permanently affix these the first 4 corners with something like epoxy sculpt, the epoxy putty, is because if the final 4 pieces that I put into place, they turn out to have bad alignment, or maybe it turns out that the first 4, it's not a problem with the final 4, but it's a problem with the puzzle in general, I have not wasted my time and completely have wasted the pieces of the first 4 in case that the alignment is so horribly bad. If you put on epoxy putty, you're not going to be able to recover those pieces again, at least not with a lot of work. It would almost not be worth it. That's why I'm only leaving them with just a little bit of epoxy, the 2-part epoxy that we used earlier. I'm only using that little bit, and basically I just need to be very, very careful when I take everything apart. So that's why, as you can see there, it's already turned quite yellow, which means I'm pretty soon I'll be able to remove the pieces. And actually, this is exothermic, and it's quite hot. So just keep that in mind if you're mixing up large quantities of it. This stuff can get pretty warm. So anyway, yeah, that's why I am not fixing these pieces permanently yet with epoxy putty, and that will be the next step. However, these pieces are actually almost set, but I'm going to go ahead and gamble that they're set well enough. So I'm going to go ahead and disassemble. Well, now you see, there you go. Like I said, learn from my mistakes. This piece, the epoxy, had already flowed down and is clearly not attached at all to that part. Alright, I have fixed my one loose piece, and now we're ready to finish marking the rest of these pieces for position. And one thing to note, the one secured corner is actually underneath this particular piece, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an extra special note that this is indeed my the fixed corner. And why we need to do that is actually I'll tell you here in just a moment. The reason we want to make sure that we mark that piece as being our fixed corner is that when the inside of the slim tower rotates, well, I'm getting ahead of myself here. When you need to disassemble this puzzle, all you can do now is pull apart one of these exposed middle layer edges. When you do that, of course, like in a standard puzzle, you would rotate a puzzle 45 degrees. Like, for example, if this was an edge you wanted to pop, you would rotate it 45 degrees and pop it out this way. In the slim tower, of course, the inside puzzle is not exposed, so you don't know if the piece that you're rotating is you're actually rotating 45 degrees or not. And again, that's because the inside of the puzzle is a bandaged puzzle. So by knowing which is our corner, we will know basically where the bandage is located. Well, how am I going to explain this here? Okay. Since that's fixed to the 2 edges on the side, it's sort of like if I block these 4 pieces here. So when the exposed part like this is rotated, we can see that we're rotating this layer, not this one, because these 4 pieces are fixed together. That's why we mark this corner, because that means these 4 are fixed together. So once you know where that corner resides, then you just look at the opposite layer piece. Let's see, I'm going to go with this piece here, rotate this one out of place 45 degrees, and very carefully pop it free. Now that we have popped it free, we can once again look at the layer pieces. Specifically the layer pieces are the ones we had just set. See, there's our corner. That's the one we marked with an X. It's very important that you know which one this piece is. Now, in the same manner as before, we can look in between and make sure that, again, that our pieces are aligned well. That's a little bit off, not too bad. That's good. And that's a little bit off as well, in a manner opposite of this piece. But really not that bad. I mean, I'll accept it. I will accept this little bit of misalignment. And for the sake of this demo, you'll see what I mean by that. Okay, so now that we have glued all our corners and have deemed them acceptable, and we have marked all of our pieces so we know how the pieces are going to be aligned, then the final step is to fill this with epoxy putty. Or not epoxy putty, but yeah, our epoxy putty, our Apoxy Sculpt, or our Magic Sculpt. You can certainly use Magic Sculpt if you have it. And as I said before earlier in the video, if I could find it here, I am a fan of Apoxy Sculpt because, again, you could get it in the color that you want. And in our particular case, we're going to find wherever my white Apoxy Sculpt is, because that's going to give me a good blending. And again, if all you have is the black, then by all means use the black. But of course, if you're using a black puzzle, then that's what you'd want to do. Of course, I still have my black pieces here ready for later. Well, that's pretty much it for this part of the demo. The last one's going to be pretty quick, and that of course is showing you how I go about filling the pieces. And the reason you want to fill the pieces, of course, is that these pieces are still pretty flimsy and weak, plus this is just held down with a little bit of epoxy. You could fairly easily pop it loose, and that's why we need to use the putty, because that will make sure that this thing is hard as a rock. Okay, so I've done one final reassembly of my Slim Tower here, and the reason why I did not permanently epoxy putty the corners on is because I wanted to give it one final scramble in a way. Take a look at this built Slim Tower, standard checkerboard pattern, very, very common to these sorts of puzzles. So I'm basically going to do the same thing with this one. And again, being very careful with the edges. And again, what we're looking for is alignment in general. If we made sure to keep everything centered well and not get too sloppy and not accept too much misalignment, as you can see here, this one is looking pretty darn good. And again, I mean, this is a custom puzzle, so you have to accept a little bit of misalignment, but you know what, you'll hardly notice it, especially in black. Yeah, you'll never even tell. So that's pretty much it. Final video, we'll go ahead and show you a few techniques for applying epoxy putty, but I don't think you'll need too much help with that. I'll show you what I do though. Alright, until next time, stay focused on something, build puzzles, have fun with life, etc., etc. I'll see you later.